Hello everyone, welcome to the weekly Purple Penny video. My name's Mark. I own and run the Purple Penny with my wife Catherine. The Purple Penny is a bricks and mortar coin and banknote and collectible shop. We're in the northern suburbs of Adelaide in a place called Mawson Lakes. Been here for about 4 years. We traded for quite a while online before then, so this is a hobby that's got out of control. And these videos are something we started a few years back, and we've been trying to do them weekly. This week is the second of our Q&A videos. We've been suggested to us a couple of times we should do a live Q&A, so we did one last month. It went quite well, and we're going to have another go at it today. Hello everyone who's watching there. I'll just say a few hellos to people. Hello Gary, Aaron, Brett, Greg, Pal, and thanks Facebook for scrolling things there. And hello Sandra, how are you? Right, so let's jump into the news here. Oh, maybe not. There we go, let's jump into the news there. So the April RAM releases are getting closer. First Thursday of next month, Thursday the 6th of April. I won't show you the full list. You can excuse me. You can look back at last week's video, or the week before. We've run through the full list there, but of course there is a couple of $2 coins. There's a silver proof C Mint Mark $2 coin, which I believe is the first C Mint Mark silver $2 coin the Mint has produced. Mintage of just 5,000 of those. We only got allocated a very small number. So if you want one of those, do reach out to your coin dealer and try and get your name on whatever list you can to get your hands on that. Hello Jason, hello Stephen, hello Daryl, hello Gloria, hello Patrick, and David. How are you going? And then there's also a whole suite of coins to do with the 50th anniversary of the Sydney Opera House, which are well worth a look at. So we're still taking interest on everything apart from the silver $2 coin. So if you are interested in any of those releases, please do send us a message through Facebook or send us an email. Right, coins in the news this week. We had a news story pop up about some Facebook lawyer who decided that what am I doing here? Facebook lawyer who decided that she didn't need to pay her tolls in Sydney if the toll booths didn't accept cash. So this particular person's reasoning was that if there was no opportunity to pay with coin of the realm, which is interesting because Australia is not a realm, then the debt is forgiven. And interestingly, she quoted the part of the currency, the 1965 Currency Act that we quoted a few weeks back. And you might remember we talked about the maximum amount of coins you could use to pay things. The first part of that particular segment of the Currency Act said that you are allowed to pay with money that is legal tender if it is made in coins that are made issued under this act and are of current weight. And then it went on to say how many of each you were allowed to present for payment. So at no point did it say that anyone had to accept those coins. It was just prescribing the maximal amount of each coins that you could use for payment. This Facebook lawyer decided to quote the first part of that section and omit the second part, and decided that meant that she didn't have to pay her tolls because none of the toll booths took cash anymore. She also neglected to point out that in the 1990s, the government did specifically add legislation that said that for the purposes of the law of the Commonwealth, a transaction is not invalid because it took place wholly or partly by means of one or more electronic communications, which means, of course, that electronic payments are perfectly valid. This sort of legal obfuscation that people seem to be doing these days, where they selectively quote things from sources that they pick and choose, of course, is a way that people are trying to avoid all sorts of things that governments, I won't say force upon them, but governments require of them. So you do need to pay your tolls whether they take cash or not, by the way. Right, we'll just go back to the news slide here. I'm not having a great day with the technology here today. A Polish metal detectorist who was sent out into a field by his sister to look for spare tractor parts because spare tractor parts had been buried in the field, found a clay vessel with 1,000 copper coins in it instead of his tractor parts. So a bit of a difference to some tractor parts there. We'll just have a look at what that looks like, that clay vessel there. And the type of coin that he discovered was known in Polish as a boratinka. They are 10-cent sized copper coins that were used in the 1600s in Poland and Lithuania. It was found in the eastern part of Poland, which is near Ukraine and Belarus. And interestingly, the whole pot of 1,000 coins, because these coins were not very valuable, would have back in the 1600s barely bought the man 2 pairs of shoes. So a lot of coins for not a lot of value, but dug up by someone who was looking for tractor parts that were supposedly buried in a field. And just touching on last week where we were talking about the legal trade of ancient coins, it is actually illegal to metal detect for artifacts in Poland without a license. And this gentleman, when he found these coins, contacted his local archaeological society and they came along and recovered the finds for him. So a great find there, 1,000 copper coins found in a clay dish in the eastern part of Poland. Next item on the news was a folder that I saw pop up this week from a fellow coin dealer, Max Stern Coins and Banknotes, who are in Melbourne. Had someone walk into their shop with a 1988 bicentennial $10 note folder, which I haven't seen before. Turns out it's a folder that was presented to staff from the note printing branch in Craigieburn in Melbourne on the occasion of the production and issue of Australia's first polymer-based currency note. So Australia was, of course, the first country in the world to release a polymer banknote in 1988. If you look at the bottom of that slide there, you can see the very familiar 1988 $10 note. The two notes in the folder are AA00 notes, so their first prefix folder issue notes. You would probably know that these notes were issued into circulation in 2 batches, and they were also made available in a white envelope and a blue folder to the collector community. All the ones in the blue folders have AA prefixes, and those prefixes run from 00 through to 23. So this particular star folder, which I have not seen before, was brought into Max Stern, and I believe they listed it for $500 or $600, and it sold pretty much immediately. Something to keep your eye out for. I doubt whether there's more than a few hundred of these folders available, and the AA0 notes themselves are worth just between $100 and $200 each as first prefixes. Right. David, Gloria, I don't know if there's a single bar 50-cent piece available. You've asked that question a couple of times now. It's not something I've ever heard of before. Hello, Kevin. Hello, Adam. Hello, Charles. Hi, Mike. Hi, John. Hi, Donna. Hello, Paul Spink. Hello, Peter. So hello, everyone who's joined in today. So we'll just jump back to the news slide here for the last news item for the day. We did talk about this particular coin a couple of months ago. It's the Queen Elizabeth, and I don't have the slide here. It's the Queen Elizabeth Canadian $2 coin with the nickel-plated ring. So it has a black ring, and it's a memorial coin for Queen Elizabeth released by the Canadian Mint. The Canadian Mint's made about 5 million of these $2 coins, and they're releasing about 80% of those into circulation. Interestingly, the coins are mostly being made available by the Royal Canadian Mint to collectors via coin swaps, which is, of course, something that our Mint was doing. And I should just say that They did hint on their Facebook page this week that they would be doing it again, that they will start that again. The Mint is going to the Royal Easter Show in Sydney. They won't be doing any coin swaps, but they did say to stay tuned for more news about coin swaps. Anyway, this Canadian black toonie, that's what they call their $2 coin, was made available via coin swaps, including one at a coin shop. And interesting that the Mint holds swaps in coin shops. And the line was several hundred people long. And the reason for that, of course, is that these coins are now selling for 40 or 50 Canadian dollars on the secondary market, and collectors could go to the coin shop and swap $4 for 2 coins. So you can only get 2 coins each. That's it for the coin news this week. We've just got a couple more hellos here. Hello, Mike, Gwen, Petra, Ash, and Brandon says it's probably part of a deceased estate. Not quite sure what you're talking about there, Brandon. Right, now we had a Q&A session last month, a question and answer session that people could reply to, and I'll do my best to answer those questions for them. Now, I put a post up on social media on Friday, and we've had several questions come through that channel, but we have had a couple of questions this morning, which I will address first, because we've not, just to reward people who are taking part today. So Gloria, I don't know about the single bar 50-cent piece. It's not something I've heard of or seen before. Aaron says, do you think Prince William has sat for a coin portrait yet? Aaron, I think he probably has. Of course, they would want to have a portrait of him available in case something happens to King Charles. King Charles is 75 this year in November. He'll be turning 75, so he's not a young man anymore. And if he did pass away or abdicate, then the Royal Mint, who seem to be pretty much on the ball, would probably want Prince William's portrait to put onto coins as quickly as possible, especially given the recent passing of the Queen. It would be foremost in their planning, I would have thought. Jason says, any tips for starting collecting ancient coins? Don't buy any until you know what's a real one, or until you know a dealer that definitely has real ones. Jason would be my number one tip. Don't buy them off of eBay. Don't buy them off of websites that you've never heard of before. There are a lot of fakes around with ancients, and my suggestion is to spend some time sourcing reputable dealers or reputable websites, and start off small. Start with a small budget. I enjoy buying silver denarii or antoni of common emperors, because you can get nice coins for $75 to $150 with excellent detail and nice metal. And if you do make a mistake, it's not a hugely expensive mistake. With regards to reputable dealers, Harlan J. Burke in the USA, Civitas Galleries in the USA. Here in Australia, Romanorum, which is Walter Holt, who's a well-known ancient coin dealer in the eastern states. And then our own Richard Welling, who's here in Adelaide from Ye Old Coin Company, deals in ancient coins as well. We have the odd one up on our website too. So there's a suggestion of places to get started with. But ancient coins very much is a case of try to buy the book before you buy the coin. What does that mean? It means know what you're doing before you start throwing money at ancient coins. That would be my tips for ancient coins. Right, let's just jump to the bottom of the list here. Apologies to anyone who I've missed. Brandon says part of a deceased estate, the $10 notes. Yeah, probably Brandon. Sorry, yes. Probably that's why they've walked into Max Stern. Right, so question one for someone that's asked already. Aha! Right. Can you hear me now? Okay. Catherine's just given me the thumbs up through the door. Sorry, I've flicked a switch I shouldn't have flicked. Right, first question was from Craig. Do a segment on what 2x2 coin holders and sleeves are safe for coins. My mother has a big collection of decimal coins and have been stored in PVC sleeves, and most have damage. Catherine and I store all of our coins in safe flips. Safe flips are these here. These are made in the USA. They're made from PET, which is the same stuff that they make soft drink bottles out of. That's how we store everything. They're double-sided pockets. You can put a coin in one side and a piece of card in the other side, or a coin in both sides, and then you fold them in half. The other less expensive option is staple 2x2 holders, which are cardboard folders with a mylar window in them. They come in different sizes. They need to be stapled closed. You put a coin in between them, fold them over. We prefer well-known brands such as Renix and Lighthouse to unknown brands, because there have been unknown brand 2x2s that have caused damage to coins before. We prefer staple holders to self-adhesive holders, simply because the self-adhesive holders can open up and you end up with a coin stuck to the inside of your holder. The downside of staple 2x2 holders is staples. Staples can cause coins to be scratched. And then with regards to album pages, we make use of polypropylene pages. So we have our own pages that we had designed several years ago here. You can also get polypropylene pages from Lighthouse, I believe, make a range of polypropylene pages, as do Ultra Pro. Before you ask, we don't have any of these products up on our website at the moment. Mailing them is problematic. For example, that packet of pages there costs as much to mail it as the cost of the packet of pages, so we're not really mailing those. Yeah, apologies with the sound there. I had something switched off on the slides that I shouldn't have had switched off, which is why that happened. So thank you, Craig, for that question. Next question here. From JJT. Now, I know what JJ's name is, but I won't disclose it here. I'm new to this hobby. I'm wondering if there is an entry set of collection, or where do I even start with the hobby? What difference would it make if I'm looking to convert it into a long-term investment? Thank you. I'll tell you the same thing we tell everyone, and by we I mean Catherine and myself, is collect what you are interested in. Spend a lot of time looking through catalogues, looking at eBay, looking at Facebook, talking to other collectors, get a sense of what things you are interested in, and then perhaps buy some of those, see how you enjoy the process of buying things and owning them, whether you actually look at them after you buy them, or it's the thrill of the hunt that gets you, whether it's the idea of owning something that's worth a material amount of money, or whether it's because of the history behind an item. It's impossible to sort of dictate what you should collect. I collect odd things. Catherine collects odd things. Other people collect other things. Collect what you enjoy. Go into the hobby slowly. Don't throw a lot of money at it quickly, because you will make mistakes. And the quickest way out of the hobby is to lose a lot of money really quickly by buying damaged stock or unpopular coins or whatever it is. I will just address the second part there of the question about converting it into a long-term investment. We are a hobby shop. We sell hobby items. We sell collectible items. We make no pretense as to the investment side of what it is that we sell. The one good thing about collecting coins is that even if they go down in value, they still have value. There are a lot of hobbies that when you collect things, that as soon as you buy them, they have no value at all. So that is the advantage of collecting coins. If you are, I will say, dead lucky and very knowledgeable about the field that you're collecting, you might make money. But, how you do that reliably, I have no idea. I have no idea. Question 3, so thank you, JJ, for that question, was from Dale. I often wondered what old-timers in Australia could buy with a sovereign when they started production back in the mid to late 19th century. So if you don't know what a sovereign is a gold coin. It's about the same size as a 10-cent piece. It's got 8 grams of 22 karat gold in it. A lot of people think that the sovereign is a rare coin or a mystical coin. It isn't. Sovereigns were just money, and here in Australia, most years and mintages for sovereigns were in the millions. So that means that, from 1860 or so through to the middle of the 1920s, most mints and years, they had mintages in the millions. They were money. How much was a sovereign worth? A sovereign was worth £1, so 20 shillings. So that almost quarter ounce of gold was worth £1. Now, Dale's question there is, what value did it have? I found some interesting statistics here. In 1851, here in Australia, the average wage for a farm labourer, this is in 1851, was £38 a year. So that's 38 sovereigns a year that a farm labourer got paid. That's about 3/4 of a sovereign a week, about 15 shillings a week. Compare that here in Australia now, the minimum wage is $812 a week. I think our bullion price for sovereigns today is about $745. So the minimum wage today per week is about 1.1 sovereigns, and back in 1851 it was about 3/4 of a sovereign. So what did 15 shillings get you back in about 1850? It got you 36 loaves of bread. So a loaf of bread was about 5 or 6 pennies. Your 15 shillings a week would get you 36 loaves of bread. Compare that today with your $812. Bread from our local baker is about $3 a loaf, so it's going to get you about 270 loaves of bread, your wages today. So what did a sovereign get you back in 1850 in terms of loaves of bread? Probably about 50 loaves of bread. Right now, here in Australia, it would get you about 260 or thereabouts. How much was a week's rent in 1850? It was about 5 shillings. So the weekly wage of 15 shillings will get you 3 weeks of rent. Compare that today, weekly rent is somewhere in the $500 to $700 range. So minimum wage, $800, gets you just over a week's rent, compared with in 1850 it would get you 3 weeks rent. And here's the most interesting comparison. 15 shillings in 1850 would get you 150 pints of beer from the local pub, and right now $812 only gets you 100 pints of beer. So in 1850 your sovereign would get you about 200 pints of beer. Today it would get you about 100. So your sovereign per beer back in 1850 had much more value. Right, there's just a couple of comments here. Paul's just commenting on the sound. Look, the sound in the final video is in sync. I can't really control how Facebook syncs up the video when it's live. If you are concerned about the sync of the sound, do watch it afterwards, because the sound is in sync afterwards. Mike says sovereigns are beautiful. David says, pre-1910, what was the most common circulating currency in Australia? British coins. British coins. We were trading with British coins, David, and the shortage of coinage in the 1860s, which led to traders' tokens and things like that, was because the British weren't supplying us with coins. In sort of early colonial times, there were other coins that traded, but all that changed in the 1820s when the governor said that we must use British coins. Chris says, when will the RAM dealers start selling the Tooth Fairy again at RRP? When the Mint supplies us. We don't have any. I don't know if other dealers are selling them at over RRP, but we don't have any. The Mint will probably make more, and there will be more available given their production numbers, I guess. A farm labourer would have been thrilled to have a shilling in his pocket, let alone a sovereign. Yep, that's correct. Thanks for that. And Sandy says the sound is in sync. Thanks, Sandy. Right, next question was from Charles. Why is the 1931 dropped one Indian die penny rarely mentioned as a rare coin in comparison to the 1930 penny? And here comes Peter's here. He can tell us. Peter, would you like to come and talk into the microphone and answer this question? I think it's because the 1931 dropped one Indian die is a variety. It is difficult for novice collectors to understand what it is. It's impossible for the media to explain easily what it is. And because of that, the interest in it is less. And because the interest in it is less, the price is lower. Much of the value of coins is really determined by demand rather than supply. Perhaps the number of drop one Indian pennies is about the same as 1930 pennies, but the demand for the 1930 pennies and the folklore behind it means that its price is that much higher. And again, I believe that's because the dropped one Indian die, it's harder for people to understand what it is that you're buying. It's harder for them to pick one of them, and I think that's simply the only reason. And that's it, really. Right, question number 5. Thank you, Darren, for this question. Peter says the 1931 dropped Indian obverse is far more scarce than 1930. Thanks, Peter, for that. But you can get them for somewhere between a tenth and a quarter of the price of a 1930 penny. So that's and that's the reality of things. Right, Darren had a good question here. I couldn't fit all of Darren's words in here onto the slide. I'd like to touch on the majority of new collectors that are focused on the modern new releases. There's a world of real historical collectible coins other than the next RAM releases. And Darren, I think it's a great, it's not really a question, it's more of an observation. And the reason behind it, I think, is largely similar to the last slide about the 1931 dropped Indian die penny. Modern releases are easier for people to understand. They're an easier gateway into the hobby for new collectors. It's easy to understand what you're getting. It's easy to understand the pricing. You don't need to be able to grade. You don't need any sort of great historical knowledge about the coin type to determine whether it's a good one for the type, or whether it's a real one, or whether it's not counterfeit, or whatever it is. Now, all those things mean that the demand for modern mint product is always going to be higher than demand for older historical coins. Many people do not transition from collecting modern mint product into collecting other types of coins, and there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. We always say collect what you enjoy. A lot of people aren't interested in the extra intellectual exercise that is required behind collecting more difficult coin series, and again, there is nothing wrong with that. We always encourage people to look at other types of coins, but if you just collect modern stuff, then by all means, more power to you. I myself don't really collect any coins at all anymore, just very unique things. So, and I can remember a old gentleman telling me a few years ago that at some point all coin collectors, if they stay in the hobby long enough, end up collecting badges and medals, and that's because there is so much more variety in the badges and medal field, and that a lot of the time people are just after the variety and the interest of things. So thank you, Darren, for that particular question. It's a good question and a good observation. I don't know Darren, but I have seen his posts on social media pages, and I do know that he collects some very interesting stuff. Right, so let's have a look here. Brandon says, have you ever had a 1922 over 21 threepence come into the shop? Yes, we have. Lots of fake ones and 2 real ones, I believe, in 4 years. We don't see them very often. David says you can also mind modern releases or coins like them in your change. Find, I think he means there. I think that makes them of greater interest to both starting and general collectors. That's a great observation. People can relate more easily to modern mint product because it's things that they see similar items in their change, and perhaps it is easier for them to understand and collect because of that. And Tanya says, oops, I'm late. Welcome, Tanya. Right. Thank you, everyone who forwarded me any questions through Facebook, it is much appreciated, and for people who send me a couple of emails and things like that. As always, if you do have any questions or anything that you'd like me to talk about, please do contact me or contact Catherine, and we will do our best to address those questions. So thank you for everyone for taking part. Peter's just made an interesting observation. As David said, coins and change was how we started collecting in the early 1960s. So decimal changeover in 1966 saw a huge surge in collecting because people were looking for things in their change. Similarly, when the dollar note went out in 1984, everyone collected dollar notes, and the $2 note went out in 1988, everyone started collecting $2 notes. When the Queen passed away recently, everyone started putting aside anything with the Queen on it. So I guess that idea that people collect things that they can relate to is a powerful one. So thank you, David, for sharing that with us. Right, that's it for everyone. Apologies for the technical errors this week. I've got the fat fingers on the mouse this week. Thank you everyone for taking part, and everyone who's watching later on the YouTubes. If you have missed out on Facebook, please do watch us on YouTube. We're always looking for more subscribers over there. I want to get to 1,000, and then I'll be happy. So thanks everyone for watching. Happy collecting. Stay safe, and we'll see you next time.